You might have thought that Formula 1 2020 was just another small update compared to last year's title, and I mean, I wouldn't really hold that against you, since Formula 1 2019 was basically Formula 1 2017 with 2 fresh coats of paint on top of it. But this year things are different, and in a year where the real-life Formula 1 calendar has a condensed and shorter version of what race enthusiasts all over the world love, Codemasters delivered the most expanded and refined Formula 1 game to date. And there are 2 main reasons for me saying that. The first one is that Codemasters have succeeded in making Formula 1 2020 the most accessible Formula 1 game to date, with the inclusion of a casual race mode that enables all possible assists and even resets players back on track when they've gone too far off. The mode also makes all terrains behave the same, so if a first-time driver wanders into a gravel trap, they can just easily drive out of them, instead of getting bogged down and losing a lot of precious time. But at the same time, F1 2020 is also the most in-depth racing sim I've played in a long time, thanks to the inclusion of the brand new My Team mode that lets you start your own Formula 1 team and become its first driver. You get to name your own team, and I went for the somewhat predictable and according to some unoriginal XP point racing. Sue me, okay? Anyway, at the start of each season you get to design or redesign your car livery, logo, and you can always rename your team if you so desire. And it's here where I just have a small issue with My Team modes, because there's not a lot of possible liveries out of which you can choose. And sure, you can edit their colors, but still, I'd love to see more options here next year. Maybe even a fully customizable livery editor. The same goes for the logo design, where you can only choose to mix and match a decent amount of pre-made badges and symbols. But I'm really just nitpicking here. After you've chosen your name and designed your livery and logo, you have to choose your first sponsor. The first one will give you a pretty hefty signing bonus that will serve as your starting budget, with which you'll have to choose your power unit supplier and your second driver. Once all that's done, it's time to manage the day-to-day business of your freshly made Formula 1 team. You'll have to schedule training for your second driver, sign new sponsored deals, upgrade facilities, or even shut them down if you run out of money. To make sure the whole premise doesn't go stale fast, there's also the new acclaim system. With this, you can basically see how well respected you and your team really are. The higher the acclaim, the more chance you have that a true F1 superstar wants to sign a contract at your team. But it also means that sponsors pay out more money. It's all great stuff really, and it did manage to keep me playing much longer at times than I actually wanted to. Coming short a few million to upgrade a facility and knowing you'll be able to pay it right after the next race, it is kind of addicting. And then you step out on the track, get into your own car, and it gave me some special kind of rush the first time I took my brand new Formula 1 car on track, knowing that I just wasn't driving for an energy drink company from Austria, but for my own team. I mean, it could have just been me, but I really did like that feeling. And if you're not like me and you don't want to start up your own team, or you just can't stand the idea for driving for any other team than your favorite, there's also the return of the standard career mode. There, it's pretty much business as usual, except for a few small updates. Because between the race weekends you also go to your team headquarters, not to upgrade any of the facilities, but to check out your own value. And it's also the place where you can give yourself some extra driver perks, like boosting your acclaim or making sure you wear down the components of your car a little bit less. Something you can also do in the My Team mode, by the way. It's also the spot where you'll have to negotiate contract extensions. At the start of the career mode, you'll also get the opportunity to start in the Formula 2 competition. Kind of like last year, but now you can choose between a short session or a full season. Or you can also skip Formula 2 altogether. Besides the career mode, there's a lot more to do, like the classic time trial mode, multiplayer races and championships, challenges, and I cannot believe I'm calling it new in 2020, but the new split screen local multiplayer mode. And I've only played one race in it, just to see how it ran on my PC, and that's why the second player got disqualified immediately, because, well, I'm alone here. And I can confirm that it does run okay on my PC, but you might have to lower some settings because, as you might have noticed, the frame rate does drop often in this mode. One thing is for sure, once you've decided what game mode you'll play, you will notice that on track it's Formula 1 just like we know and love, albeit with some changes. For one, you'll have the ability to use the overtake button, like in real life, to better utilize your ERS. But to be honest, it was one of the first things I turned off again, just to let the computer handle it for me. Another change some of the biggest Formula 1 fans out there will notice straight away is that the overlay now looks the same as the real life overlay we get to see on TV. Well, almost exactly the same. There are a few differences, but they won't bother you at all, and I doubt you'll even notice them when you're playing. I mean, I didn't until I looked at some reference footage and saw the differences while I was writing for this review. Anyway, the biggest improvement by far on track has to be the AI. They just seem a bit smarter in the way they drive, and they're also a bit more aggressive, and not in a dumb, you're in my way so I'll ram you off the road kind of way like a few years ago. But they will defend their positions more, and they will use some really nice fake moves to trick you into creating openings. At least they'll do that on the higher difficulties, and I really did like that. Other than that, I also felt that the cars have a bit more grip than in last year's Formula 1 game. Something I really noticed during the Belgian Grand Prix, where I usually just fly off the Eau Rouge turn and crash into a wall. But now, I not only managed to keep my car on track, but I could do it at a decent speed. It's only a shame then that Formula 1 2020 comes with some of the same issues as the last few entries in the series. The same interviewers after the race with the same questions that don't always make sense, like this one. And I really hate that I haven't recorded it. But anyway, I drove one of my cleanest races in a long time, in other words, without crashing. And then after the race, Claire asked me what the reason was for me leaving behind a lot of paint on the walls. I mean, it didn't even make sense. Another thing I sometimes came across was a super annoying bug during the startup of the game where Formula 1 got crammed into the top left corner of my screen, only to go back normal after I reset the resolution in-game. And that's a bug that's been plaguing me ever since F1 2017, so Codemasters, please fix it. But luckily, none of those nitpicked issues hamper the fun I have on track. And I don't really know how Codemasters has done it, but they've created the deepest and simultaneously most accessible F1 game in years. With a great new My Team mode, the best-in-class racing gameplay and an overall stunning presentation, I can confidently say that F1 2020 is the best Formula 1 game I've played in a long time. And if you're even just a little bit of a race fan, you should definitely buy it.